Hey Colts fans, I'm JJ Stankevitz. Welcome into another episode of the Colts Show, an Indianapolis Colts podcast. We have a training camp preview coming up on today's episode, and who better to talk camp with me than my friend Larra Overton. Larra, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks,
I know we used to do plenty of these together, and excited to have you back on here.
It's great to be back and to feel like the ramp up is underway. Like, this is where you start to feel like you've got a little activity. You're counting down until the players report to Grand Park. So ready to get going.
I know. It's like this is the last episode until we're up at Grand Park full time for a month. Before we get going, remember, submit your questions for the Colts Show Mailbag on Colts.com/mailbag. You can get them to me on social media, in the YouTube comments. Plenty of places to go there. We have a good mailbag question coming up later on the podcast. Also, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to us here on Indianapolis Colts Podcast. Give us a 5-star review. We love seeing those. They help get the show out to more people. All right, Larra, how do you watch training camp? Like, because we all go to camp, right?
We all go to camp.
And, like, you and I have been going to, I think this is my 10th training camp I've gone to.
Yeah. It would be something like that for me because I had the few years before the team, and now this will be, my 6th season with the team? Is that right?
This is my 9th, because this is my 5th season with the team.
Okay, yeah.
I did 4 prior in Chicago.
Yeah.
So, watching training camp is an interesting experience because you can take in so much.
You can.
But, like, how do you watch it?
That's such a great question. I think one of the things is I like to watch a lot of who is matching up against who in certain situations.
The one-on-one stuff.
The one-on-one stuff, that gives you a really good indication of kind of who is winning in those matchups, who is, kind of showing just some form, especially as you get into those later series of camps. That's something you really look for, especially with those joint practice opportunities. Those are some of the most valuable reps you get of high quality, high caliber type of competition. Like, another thing, like, this is probably going to sound like very kind of surface, but it's just like, who looks fast? Like, when you're getting out there, right? Like, who's like getting off the line well? Who's running crisp routes? Who's getting downfield? Who's getting open? Who's getting to players defensively? Like, that's just one thing I think that you can just kind of watch and see. And it's something that I think you can glean from camp because it's something you don't really see full speed, full reps when you're in OTAs, when you're in mini camps, all of that. So to me, that's one of the differentiating points coming into training camp is looking at that specifically. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I fill up a notebook every day with, I'm looking for the splash plays. Kind of similar to who's looking fast. It's like, okay, who made a couple of plays today that make you kind of go, okay, whoa, like, let me take that in, let me write it down. And then you kind of track that throughout training camp. And last year, it was Alec Pierce.
Yeah.
Like, every day, Alec was out there making plays, and you're kind of tracking that, being like, I think, so, there might be something here, and it turned out there was. That's kind of what I want to talk about before we get into kind of the 3 big blocks we're going to have today. It's like, it's like setting up like an Oswald class, like 3 big blocks and a finisher. Here we go.
It is.
To go work out. But just like, how do you contextualize this? Because camp, you can read too much into one really good day, even one really good week.
Yeah.
What's like maybe the most important piece of context that you take when you're looking at guys having a standout camp, quote unquote, or he's struggling in camp, quote unquote?
Here is what I look to is one day is one day, good or bad. What I like to look for is how do you bounce back from a down day or how do you continue momentum from a good day? Is trying to make sure your highs aren't too high and your lows aren't too low. That's one of the things that I always look for in particular in camp is for guys to find a level of consistency. And what I really like to find, as much as you like to see how guys follow a really good day, and certainly like you said last year, like Alec Pierce had a lot of really good, consistently good days. I like to see a guy struggle and then come back, and how does he handle that adversity the next day? Because that's what you're going to face in games during the regular season is you're going to have a down series. You're going to have an off series. Okay, do you come back that next series and learn from your mistakes and you're able, how quickly are guys learning? How quickly are they adapting from the things they got beat on a series before or a play before? I think that's one of the really indicative things in camp especially in a camp like this year when you have a new defense with Lou Anarumo. How quickly are guys implementing changes and coaching from this defense when they're out there on field? Because you know the way Shane Steichen runs a training camp practice. It's up-tempo. It's quick-paced. And that's likely what you're going to see. This defense is going to be put to the test with some of that. And that's what you're really going to see is how quickly can guys kind of wash and erase a bad play or a down play or a mistake and then learn from that on the next rep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, speaking about the totality of it, I like to zoom out even more on it. And, like, if you have a good week to start off camp, can you keep that up? By the end of camp, that last preseason game, are you still performing at that level? Or for guys who, quote unquote, start camp slow, are they growing? Are they steadily building toward the season? Because, like, some guys, what you're going to get in the right. Like DeForest Buckner, if he has a quote unquote, I didn't really notice him the first week, he'll be fine. You're not worried about him. But there are guys who, especially rookies, second-year guys, even third-year guys, who you're like, okay, I don't know, like, when is he going to pick it up? Like, I remember, 2023, Will Fries? To my eye, early on in camp, it looked like he struggled a little bit. And then by the end of camp, it was like, I think he's looking rock solid out here, and he went out and had a really good season.
Right.
So you can do that. I just think, sometimes because we're so excited to get football back, we focus on the micro, not the macro with camp. And it's all about figuring out, training camp was once put to me as in practices are quizzes and the games are tests. And I think I would probably say the games and the joint practices are tests.
Yeah, I would heavily weight joint practices, especially this year.
Because that's where it's, the league is gone with that. But I think take every day as a quiz. And at the end of it, you get a final grade. And you could start off with 3 bad quizzes and all of a sudden you end with 3 good quizzes and it all, it evens out. So that's kind of the general scope that, we need to look at. And that is a great segue to block number 1.
There we go.
Guess where we're starting, Larra? Talking about training camp.
Well, I have the cheat sheet, so yeah.
You do. I'm guessing all of our listeners and viewers are like, how did you make it this far in the podcast without mentioning Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones? Well, here we go. This is the number one thing that we are going to talk about with regards to training camp. It is the question involving the 2025 Colts. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? And how will it be determined in training camp? Now, the first sub-question on that, is Anthony Richardson healthy?
We'll see.
We'll see. That right now, we don't know. We're taping this in July. We're still at 56th Street. Yeah. We're not up at Grand Park yet. I imagine we will get an answer from Shane Steichen. Well, probably, I guess it could be Chris Ballard when we report to training camp on July 22nd. Will Richardson be ready to go from day one or not? That's the first question that has to be answered.
Absolutely. And, we did hear Anthony was doing, I believe, his camp a few weeks ago, and he indicated that he's feeling really good. He's very optimistic based on, his perspective and where he stands. But given the injury and what he endured this spring, early summer, you can't risk rushing anything with him. It's not worth the gamble of pressing to be ready to start training camp if that jeopardizes where he is to start the season or his ability to fully compete for that starting.
But does that put him behind the 8 ball if he doesn't start camp healthy? Like in the competition with Daniel Jones.
Are you a little bit behind the 8 ball because you didn't play vet minicamp?
That's the thing is I think he might you could say he already is. Now I think the minicamp stuff and missing however many OTA practices plus the minicamp, that's one thing. Missing training camp practices is a much bigger deal.
But I also think that if you aren't 100% confident in the shoulder and where you are, there's no reason to rush week 1 of training camp when you have so much time and so many quality practices when once you get into pads. That first week is such a progression.
It is.
And such a ramp up for everyone because, it's so much different when guys are doing their summer workouts and their specialized training. Usually they're working with, a specific position group coach or, very specified type of training. And then you get into full practices, that type, it's completely different. So you see that very steady progression ramp up the first week of practice. Once guys get into pads, this becomes a different type of conversation. So to me, if Anthony Richardson is ready to go once you start those padded practices, That's what I would probably weight even a little more heavily necessarily than day one.
I do think this is interesting, though. In years past, the Colts have had their first practice, and then they've had a walkthrough the day after. This year, it's 4 straight practices. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And those are all, you can get your tickets on Colts.com/camp to come see us there. But it is 4 straight days of that ramp up, and then it's an off day, and then it's another practice, which I think the regulations are you can have your first padded practice. I think it's 5 days in after 4 practices. So, I mean, we'll see when, we'll figure it out when we get up there. But that's going to be a heavy on the install on those 4 days. And look, you're right. If Anthony rushes back and makes it worse somehow, I don't know if that could happen based on the injury or whatever it might be, then that's worse because now you're talking about missing more. But I have to imagine that he probably is he's itching to get back out there.
He's such a competitor. You know he wants every opportunity to compete. There is no doubt about that whatsoever.
Now, just real quick, just as kind of a primer here, because we won't get a chance to talk to our listeners and our viewers until the next Thursday. So if Anthony Richardson goes on PUP to start training camp, that's the physically unable to perform list. You are still active on the roster, and that's just essentially a mechanism of I think it's if you don't pass your physical or something like that, which guys get put on PUP and then they get pulled off 2 days later all the time. Happens all the time. Sometimes guys go into training camp with a known existing injury, and it's he's going to start on PUP, and then you're going to figure out when he comes back later. So I don't know if Anthony Richardson's going to start on PUP. I wouldn't freak out if he does. I think that would probably be we might get an indication of how long it would be after that. But Anthony Richardson, the point is,
it's not like during the season when a guy goes on IR and that has to be for a minimum period of time before he can be activated.
There's no minimum period of time. It can be any time during training camp. So just as a quick little reminder on that one, if that news does come out on Tuesday. But, I mean, look, the Colts' goal was to have a 50-50 split of reps between Richardson and Jones. And if Richardson is not participating, then will that put Daniel Jones ahead? And we got this question from Jason Freed from Carmel, Indiana. With Anthony Richardson's shoulder injury and missing time during the offseason, does this put Daniel Jones in the driver's seat to be the starting quarterback week 1? I think we were kind of framing it, Larra, as the starting, as does it put him ahead in the competition?
Right.
But does Daniel Jones walk into training camp if Richardson is not participating early on as the favorite to be the starter in week 1?
No, I think we're too far away from week 1 for that to be the case.
I think I would tend to agree with that. There's still so much practice time.
There is so much practice time. There is so much you still need to see from Daniel Jones to see. There's so much you still need to see from Anthony Richardson. There's way too much still to be seen to kind of determine that just yet.
Right.
That is why there is going to be, such a microscope on these training camp competitions centered around the quarterback position.
All right, so let's just hypothetically here, Richardson and Jones they're both competing, they're both out there. Whenever Anthony gets back, whether that's day 1,
I like
whatever.
this question.
What is a best case way this competition plays out in training camp? And this is, I put in the notes here, beyond the obvious quote, both guys look good. Obviously you'd love both guys to look good, but what does it mean for Daniel Jones to look good during training camp?
Right. This is, I kind of like the way that you broke it down. You did such a great job, in the outlines of this is he able to be as consistent and efficient kind of in those short intermediate throws, but also push the ball downfield.
Right.
Whereas Anthony, so strong in those explosive plays, pushing the balls downfield, but you want to see more consistency in those intermediate throws. So it's almost kind of that's what you want to see from each side. And my kind of piggyback onto this is really what you need to see, and this is somewhat of what you set this up as outside the obvious, but you need both these guys to show the best football they have ever produced.
That's a great point.
In training camp, because
better than Jones was in 22.
Better than Jones was in 22.
Yeah.
Better than Anthony has been on his very best days. What you need to see is not one of these quarterbacks beat the other. You need one of these quarterbacks to prove that they give this football team a chance to win games and a chance to be competitive. This is not so much about a quarterback competition between two quarterbacks, is what quarterback makes this team competitive.
I think that's a great way to frame it, because I saw in 2020 the Bears had a quarterback competition that I covered
I have
between.
here, by the way.
Break them out.
I'm like, yeah.
It was Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles, and I remember getting to the we at NBC Sports Chicago, we literally had like a meter. It was like a radar thing, and my colleague Adam Hogue would literally update the meter between Mitch. It was like the New York Times dial for the elections.
Yes.
It was like an updating it between Mitch and Foles, and it was going back and forth. And at the end of camp, I remember everyone looked at each other like, I don't know. They both didn't look very good. I mean, you hope that doesn't happen. You hope that's
worst case scenario.
Right, that's worst case scenario. You hope you get to the end of camp and it's like, okay, this is a tough decision to make because both guys looked good and were the best versions of themselves. To go back to what you mentioned about Jones pushing the ball downfield, so the question I want to get answered about Daniel Jones was his lack of deep ball passing in New York, was that like a can't or a won't, based on he can't do it or he won't do it because the circumstances around him? So the context here, of players with at least 500 pass attempts in the last 3 seasons, Daniel Jones was last in the NFL in average depth of target. So he was only throwing the ball on average 6.9 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. He was also last in big-time throw percentage, which is like Pro Football Focus is like essentially was that an elite tier throw that he made. He was last in the NFL in those two things. He had the highest percentage of throws short of the sticks and the lowest percentage of throws past the sticks, as you would assume, out of 44 quarterbacks there. Here's the context. The New York Giants allowed the 3rd highest pressure rate in the NFL over the last 3 years.
Right.
And they allowed the most sacks in the NFL, 215. That was 14 more than the second most allowed by a team. Also,
so
the
how
Giants,
much of it was the quarterback himself? How much was it him having time to throw and push the ball downfield and hit those deep shot throws?
On top of that, the New York Giants led the NFL in drop rate at 6% over his 3 years, the last 3 years there. So was it a matter of Daniel Jones did not have time to push the ball downfield, he did not have the receivers to push the ball downfield, or he himself does not want to push the ball downfield? Because the Colts have receivers who can push the ball downfield.
That's my thing.
They have an offensive line that can protect for you to push the ball downfield. So now I think we're going to find out.
If you know one of your biggest weapons, Alec Pierce, what he does better than anybody is explosive plays downfield, right? Led the league in catches or yards per catch, right?
Yep, and yards per target.
In yards per target. Okay, you also have a guy in A.D. Mitchell who we are going to get into a little bit later. He's another weapon that you are going to have to utilize and find ways to get him the football. Like Downs and Pittman, you know what they are, and they're going to do their thing. But to me, such a trademark of what this offense needs to be in 2025 hinges on hitting those explosive plays and hitting them with consistency. You've got to be able to use the guys who are at your disposal. Use the weapons who are surrounding you. That's what great quarterbacks do, is bring out the best in the guys who are surrounding them down on the field. And now you add in a guy like Tyler Warren into that mix.
Hey, you throw those seam balls to him, the overs, all those, that contributes to your intermediate routes. Those could even count as downfield if they're 20 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. All right, so the flip side with Anthony Richardson, which you talked about too, is it's those short and intermediate throws. With Anthony Richardson, I'm going to pay a lot of attention to 7-on-7 because that is timing and that is accuracy. And that's read the defense, bam, ball goes here. I think this even happened a little bit last year where Anthony in 11-on-11 looked really good. And then in 7-on-7, there were some days where he had some issues, a lot of balls on the ground. And that was because you can't, extending plays in 7-on-7 doesn't really matter because there's no pass rush. 7-on-7 is there's no O-line and there's no D-line. So can he just, 1, 2, 3, boom, 1, 2, 3, boom on those? If he shows some growth there, I think that's going to tell me a lot about where his trajectory might be going.
I'm going to go back to a few weeks ago when I asked a question to Reggie Wayne. And I believe you were in the scrum at this time. And I said, Reggie, when you have an offense that has a quarterback competition, what do you advise your receivers to do to help those guys be at their best? Like, what do you as receivers do to support each of those quarterbacks? Because the best thing for your receivers is for each of these guys to be in the best position to succeed. And Reggie kind of joked that he's like, it's not even as much like the on-field stuff. He said, I told my guys last year, like, you need to be buying Anthony Richardson diapers because he'd just become like a new father at that point. So, kind of trying. So,
not adult diapers, by the way. Baby diapers.
Baby diapers. No, he has a son. He has a son. He's an infant at home. So, and you know how expensive diapers are. You have had.
Sure do.
You've had newborns. So, I think that there's a lot to be said for how the time when you're at camp is being utilized to not only put in the on-field work, but to collectively be on the same page, establish a rhythm, have those those nonverbal cues that you're able to read off of guys, have that instinct, be able to, when Anthony's out there, know exactly where he's looking or exactly what he needs in a certain situation. So I really want to see what extra work are you guys doing? And that's what Reggie said, at this time, when you guys go out, go to dinner, do those different things. And I really feel like that we will see who has done that within this offense when you get into training camp.
All right, last one here about quarterbacks. Does Riley Leonard factor in at all here? Do you expect that? I mean, I look at it and I say he's a 6th-round pick. I think the expectations for someone drafted there are, you're probably a backup. You're probably a 3rd stringer. I wouldn't put it at 0 that'll factor in, but I would say it would take an exceptional training camp for him to factor in.
When you have a day 3 pick, this is something like, hey, we're excited to see what he can do out there. Let's just see what you can do. And you're talking about a guy who is probably most likely 2 years away. Maybe he factors in, depending on how things another year from now. And obviously you kind of look at maybe other situations of quarterbacks who are taken in similar positions and different things. So I think
in 2022, was it with the 49ers? Brock Purdy was the 3rd. Obviously he's the example now.
He's the outlier.
He has supplanted Tom Brady as the day 3 outlier. But it was Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo who were competing there, and it wasn't until both those guys got hurt that Brock Purdy got a chance to play. But I think behind the scenes, I think the 49ers were like, I think we got something here, but it wasn't like he had pushed his way up to push either of those guys for playing time. It was more like, I think we got something, but it's going to be Lance and it's Garoppolo.
I think anything that Riley Leonard shows you is something that's going to be fun to see. It's going to be encouraging for what the future could be for him at the quarterback position. Probably not something for 2025.
All right. So that's the position battle, right? I counted 8 others that I put on the rundown of I'm interested in watching these, and I started with the obvious ones. And then I just kept adding them. And I thought back to what Chris Ballard said at the end of last season. Of we have to add more competition to this roster. Well, I think it's right here in what I ran down. So I've got 8 of these that I'm going to be keeping an eye on these. Let's start on the offensive line. And we don't need to spend a ton of time on each, but just a quick preview. Let's start at center. Danny Pinter and Tanner Bortolini. Tanner Bortolini is not walking into this. This is his job.
Big void with Ryan Kelly.
It is. And that's why I started at center and then right guard's the next one with Matt Gonzalez. But I think a lot of people have probably just penciled in Bortolini in there. But Danny Pinter is going to compete to win that job. He is. You
think about the level at which Danny Pinter was playing before he suffered the injury during the preseason.
That was 2023.
Yeah, I just thought he was playing great. And at that point, now he wasn't probably going to supplant Ryan Kelly, but he had positioned himself very well to be.
There's a reason why the Colts have brought him back 2 times.
And this is something that I learned from Tony Sperano, and I was actually doing an interview maybe a week or so ago, and I just pointed to, I don't know that outside of this building, people around the league recognize how excellent of a position group coach Tony Sperano is. I don't know that he gets enough credit for what he does with that group.
Because you think about the guys who are always mentioned as the best O-line coaches in the league, and it's, what's his face in Philly, which is terrible, and I can't remember his name because he's the best one.
Sure.
But, there's him, and there are a couple other guys around the league who it's like consistently, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, Tony Sparano Jr. developed Will Fries and Bernard Ryman into legitimately really good NFL starters.
Yeah.
Will Fries just made a ton of money. Bernard Ryman's going to make a ton of money.
Right.
And I think now he's in charge of the Bordolinis, Matt Gonzalez, getting those guys to a point. But look, Danny Pinter is a veteran who, like we've talked about, he's not just gonna. He's got a chance to start.
Something I learned too was that as soon as the decision was made to give Tanner some of those reps when Ryan Kelly was out, and they had made the decision to go with Tanner over Danny, no one was more supportive of Tanner Bornolini than Danny Pinter. Doing the extra work with him, taking him under his wing, helping him, in every situation possible, breaking down film with him, doing all of the extra things. Like, truly, Danny is one of the consummate teammates that you have.
All those guys love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is so indicative not only of the type of teammate he is, but also the confidence that he has in himself to be like, hey, I'm going to do my best job and just know that my best is going to give me a chance to compete, but my best is also going to make Tanner his best.
Yeah. And so Bordolini last year did not give up a sack on 210 pass blocking snaps. So that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. When the Colts needed a center to step in for Ryan Kelly in weeks 13 and 15, they went with Danny Pinter. Mm-hmm. So, I think that one is a lot more even than you might just sort of assume. Mm-hmm. At right guard, I do think I put this one in here as Matt Gonzalez versus the field.
Yeah.
Because I do think he has the inside track there. But the Colts do have a couple guys. Tony Sparano Jr. has mentioned Josh Sills. Mm-hmm. Dalton Tucker started some games last year. He's still going to have to go earn it during training camp.
No question. And I think that's something that you're going to see, and just the level, as you said, the competition, you want to be sure guys are pushed in camp. I do think that there is a reason that you spent high draft capital to get Matt Gonzalez where you did.
It's a third round pick.
Exactly. Like,
you expect those guys to be starters at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you see the work that Matt Gonzalez has put in, he knows what the expectation is going into the season. This is a guy who is ready for the opportunity to earn it. He's not ready to be given the starting job. He's ready to prove that he has earned and is willing to fight for that starting job.
Yeah. He's got that physical kind of nasty streak. I've talked about it on this podcast. Like, I like that at guard for him. And then, we'll see where things go in the future for him. But I think for right now, I like him in there competing to win at guard. All right, the next one.
Who's better positioned to challenge Matt Gonzalez than having Coach Partridge over on the defensive line when those guys were together at Pitt?
They were together at Pitt, yeah.
All
right, the next one's kind of spicy.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's cornerback. And it's not Kenny Moore II. It's not Charvarius Ward. Who's that third cornerback? It's been Jalen Jones, and he has not let go of that job in 2 years. He has fought for it, he has earned it, and he has kept it.
Yeah.
Having said that, it is a new defensive coordinator coming in. Fresh set of eyes. Maybe, I don't know what Lou Anarumo might want there. And you have Justin Wally and Juju Brents right there.
Yeah.
As guys who you have spent a lot of draft capital on who can compete. Like, I don't doubt for a second that Jalen Jones will compete to hang on to that job.
That's all he's done since
However,
he's been here.
He's going to have to compete to hang on to that job.
Yeah.
That's why I put it on here, and I think that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing for this roster.
None of these guys shy away from a challenge. One of the things we have heard about Justin Wally is just how hungry, how competitive.
Like Shane Steichen, I asked him a question just about like the rookies in general, and he just went right. No, it was about Lou Anarumo's defense. It wasn't even about the rookies. Yeah. And he immediately just was like, Justin Wally's been making a play every single day out here.
Yeah,
that was during OTAs, and it's like, okay, you take a note of the head coach shouting out a rookie corner like that.
Well, I remember talking to Tyler Hughes, who was the area scout who covered Justin Wally and had a lot of draft picks in this last draft class. And when I was asking him about Justin Wally, he said when we went into the draft room, for some of our conversations, Chris Ballard kept reinforcing, don't let me forget about toughness. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the biggest sells on Justin Wally. I mean, all of the measurables are there, but everyone just kept coming back to, this guy is so tough. So tough. I know you talked to him during media day. He is so much fun to watch. But to me, like Jalen versus Justin versus Juju, these are guys with pretty varied skill sets, like very different.
Yes.
Very different kind of
Jalen
body
Jones
types.
had 100 tackles last year?
I totally
I genuinely didn't know that until I pulled up his Pro Football Reference page. I was like, oh my God, he had 100 tackles.
Unbelievable.
You talk about tough.
To me, like the most unknown, although Justin Wally is a rookie, is Juju Brents.
Yeah,
like
if he's healthy.
When he's healthy, that guy makes plays. Like when he can stay on the field, he makes plays on the field. So to me, I think Jalen has shown you what he's going to be. Like, I don't know that there's a player who's had more consistency, maybe than what Jalen Jones has showed you. There's a huge upside with Justin Wally. He talked about modeling a lot of his game off of Kenny Moore, right? So there's an area there too where he may play behind Kenny in certain situations, kind of fill
Well,
in
and
that
I think with Lou playing more dime coverages, you're going to need a fourth cornerback, and I think that guy would probably be Justin Wally in that situation. But it could also be Juju Brents because you could move Charvarius Ward inside.
Yeah.
If Juju shows you something and you got to get him on the field on the outside. So both these guys, it's not just competing against Jalen Jones, but it's competing for probably that third, fourth cornerback spot that is going to see a lot of playing time this year. It's not going to be as static as we're just playing three and that's it.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I'm excited for that group in particular, especially with what that group looks like under Lou.
All right, linebacker, the spot opposite Zaire Franklin. Jalen Carlies or the field? Because neither Jalen Carlies nor Zaire Franklin participated in the offseason program. Right. They were both recovering from offseason procedures. So Shegu Alubi, Cameron McGrone, Joe Bacci, there are a couple guys here, Liam Anderson, a couple guys here, you're like, okay, maybe there's some competition there. Or was the Colts' lack of movement at that position this offseason, outside of signing Bacci, who was in Cincinnati mostly as a special teamer, was their lack of movement in the offseason a sign that we really, it's Chris Ballard putting his money where his mouth is, we really like Jalen Carlies and think he's going to be a good starter for us?
Yeah, I think because when you look at one of the areas that you have done really well in terms of guys you've brought in, you look at the linebacker position. When you look at, going back to Darius Leonard, Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, just Bobby Okereke. Yeah, just all of the different guys who you've had. That's been a really good rotation of guys who you have been able to have. So I do think you feel pretty good about the group that you have. I think that Shegu Alubi is probably one of the more underrated guys on this roster because every time he gets an opportunity, he proves to you why he has been that guy, why he has gotten the call, why he has stepped up. When you think about, the rare occasion, we haven't seen Zaire Franklin miss a ton of time, but when he has.
Carolina, Shea good interception in that
Shea
game.
was significant. I do think that Jalen Carlies has immense upside.
Yeah.
I am so excited for him. And my thing was, too, is, late in the season, he came back off of, I think it was the shoulder injury, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was. And immediately was impactful. And that was one of the things, I talked to him about then is, what did you want to show? And he just talked about, the eagerness for wanting to be sure he was there for his team, wanting to be, the guy that they needed him to be, even though he was still progressing back off of that.
Yeah.
That's I love that group. I love the depth that they have. That's kind of one to me where, I have no concern about that area, right?
So, and here's where I'm at with it. And I got this question from James Bentley from Coldwater, Michigan. And he asked about Jermaine Pratt, who's a linebacker with the Bengals who Cincinnati released, and then he signed with the Raiders. Mm-hmm. If you sign Jermaine Pratt, you're cutting off a path to development for Jalen Carlies.
Oh.
And if you believe in Jalen Carlies, you should stick with that. You should stick with that plan, not a one-year stopgap. Yes, he played with Lou Anarumo, but if you like Jalen Carlies, don't cut off his path to growth and to development, because if he hits, great, you've got your solution at weak side linebacker for the next couple of years. And like you said, Larry, you've done a pretty good job finding these guys on day 2, on day 3 of the NFL draft.
And he was one of the more intriguing guys to me last year when we were talking about early season, right? He looked
he was making a ton of plays in camp, and then he got hurt, but he was making a ton of plays.
Making a ton of plays. So I do think that what he has shown so far gives you a really good indication of what he is going to do when fully cleared to participate, as you hope he is to start training camp.
All right, backup running back. This is a good
wild.
One. This is a good one. You got Khalil Herbert, who you signed as a free agent in March. You've got DJ Giddens, who you took in the 5th round out of Kansas State. And you got Tyler Goodson coming back for his third year.
Yeah.
This one, man, I don't know how to handicap it because you've got some guys here who, like the Colts really like Giddens. They really, really like this guy. But Khalil Herbert, this was a fun one that I looked up. Among running backs with at least 300 rushing attempts from 2021 to 2023, so not 2024, in that span, Khalil Herbert was tied for third in yards per attempt at 4.9. Here are the guys he was tied with, 4 other players. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Raheem Mostert, and Aaron Jones. That's pretty good company to be in. Khalil Herbert's a good football player. And DJ Giddens is also a good football player. But, like, hold up a second because that right there, those two guys, and that, Goodson's been here for 3 years now. Those couple of guys, I could see having a really interesting battle, especially when you get down, to me, when you get into the preseason games with those guys, that's when I'm going to really look forward to the season games among that crew.
Now, going back, this has been a while, but when you look to this offense 2 years ago, Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, that was a dynamic duo in the run game. And, of course, there are a few running backs who are Jonathan Taylor, and rightfully so. But Zach Moss was such a complementary piece where it gave you a bit of a change of pace, and you kept defenses honest, even when you had Zach Moss out on the field and you were giving Jonathan Taylor well-deserved rest. And there was a drop-off last year when you went to Trey Sermon or Tyler Goodson in those types of situations. Obviously, Goodson's a little bit different. He's more of kind of that pass-catching type of running back, a little bit of a different weapon in that regard. But I am really excited for that competition in particular with the way this offense wants to operate. We talked about the priority on the explosiveness in the passing game. You want to be able to have that dual threat of your running, your running capable quarterback and a run threat in your running back, and that be able to create some opportunities with what you're able to do in terms of the dynamic of this offense.
All right, next one here. I just put this as Adonai Mitchell versus the depth chart.
Oh,
because like our Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce, are they kind of entrenched as the top 3, or could AD work his way in there? And I mean, this is saying like there's going to be rotation there. AD Mitchell's going to get opportunities, but like essentially how many opportunities is he going to earn during training camp with, I think, those 3 guys probably being in pretty solidified roles within this offense?
He's going to have to earn his way into it for sure, from what you've seen, and he's very intriguing. He's probably one of the more intriguing players that you have on this entire roster.
I think if you talk to some people, and I've had this conversation with folks outside the building, they'll tell you he's the most talented receiver on this team. That doesn't mean he's the best receiver on this team, but from a pure talent, I mean, you look at the way he gets open. There aren't many guys in the NFL who get open like he can, but Can he get open on time? Can he catch the ball in traffic? Can he do some of the things that held him back last year and overcome those this year?
And one of the things that we have tended to see from receivers, and I do think that, Alec Pierce has been a good example of this, is like that leap from, either year 1 to year 2 or year 2 to year 3 at the receiver position. It tends to be pretty significant. When you think about Josh Downs was, in terms of what he did his, rookie season.
Pretty rare.
Pretty rare, right? Rookie record, supplanted by our own Billy Brooks.
Our guy Bill Brooks.
So I do think that you can't weigh too heavily some of maybe the disappointment, so to speak, from AD Mitchell in year 1, just because that is such an area for growth. I think that it's going to be seen. Like, he's got to establish chemistry with both quarterbacks. He's got to be able to show that he's equally effective regardless of who is under center within this offense. So I think that that's something that is going to be key to see within this. But I do really think that you go into camp and if you're Pitt and you're Alec and you're Josh, like, you feel pretty comfortable with where you are. Not to say that they're going to be complacent in any way.
Right.
They're still going to be challenged and they're going to be pushed. But I do think that AD Mitchell comes into this training camp with a whole lot to prove.
And I think it's a really good thing if AD Mitchell comes into camp and he starts showing out there. Because, again, you're talking about that healthy tension on the team. Every single one of those guys, Pittman, Downs, Pierce, who are not operating like, their job is theirs, all of a sudden you do have a guy who's performing. Well, I better go out and perform.
Yeah.
Because he may not start over me, but he might eat into my reps. And that stuff is really healthy for a team to have that. And again, this team didn't have a ton of that last year, except at wide receiver when Alec Pierce took that huge step forward, in part because of that healthy tension that came from the competition he had with A.D. Mitchell.
My other thing is, show it in practice. That's great. Translate it to joint practices. Translate it to preseason games. Translate it. Because I do feel like that we saw him in training camp. You saw some flashes. Now
he is a dominant one-on-one player in training camp. Dominant. Because the way he gets open, like I just talked about. But can he translate that to everything else that comes with it?
And once you get open, what are you doing with it?
Exactly.
What are you doing with the football at that point?
And, I think a year of, growth for him, I hope will help. And he's, again, if it comes together for A.D. Mitchell, like, my God, he could be good.
And this offense will be really exciting to watch, too. Like, that's what you want, is like having those 4 guys as options, plus you put Ashton Doolin in there, as another piece in there. And you add, your tight end group led by Tyler Warren.
Which we are going to talk about. We are going to get to him.
Okay.
All right, but let's move on to more competitions here. I got 2 more. Defensive end. I could not sort out who's going to start between Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Laiatu Latu, Taekwon Lewis, and then also JT Tuimoloau. You got 5 guys in there who all have some sort of starting pedigree to them. Obviously, Paye and Ebukam have been entrenched starters. Samson did not play last year due to the Achilles injury. Laiatu Latu played quite a bit last year. Taekwon Lewis, a guy who every single coach who's ever coached Taekwon Lewis is like, I love that dude. I trust him with everything. And then, you draft JT Tuimoloau in the second round, assuming he's going to start at some point. That's why you draft him there. So, look, everyone's going to play there. But what does this rotation look like? And I think the question to answer here is maybe what's fair to expect out of Samson coming off the Achilles injury?
Yeah, it's interesting because he led the team in sacks in 23. I don't know.
He's also a great run defender that year. He was all around really good. He was.
And I don't know that you can expect him to necessarily be that immediately off of the injury. I think it's reasonable to give him somewhat of a runway to build up over the course of kind of that early part of the season. But knowing what we have seen from Samson Ebukam, like, he's going to make it hard for you to keep him off the field. That's one thing I know. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like, exactly what the rotation is going to look like, but he is going to give himself every opportunity to be on the field and give you every reason to put him out there.
Here's what's interesting to me is I was looking at snap percentages from the last 2 years from the Colts' top 4 defensive ends. And in 2023, Ebukam and Paye played 60%. Dayo Odengbo was at 53%. Taekwon Lewis is at 37%. In 2024, Dayo Odengbo played 64%. That's because he was healthy all year. Kwity Paye was at 58%. Laiatu Latu is at 53%. Taekwon Lewis is at 31%. Now, injuries, again, factor into that. Taekwon missed some time last year. But the Colts haven't had, 5 guys that they can rotate in there because in 23, you didn't have Laiatu Latu on the roster yet. And in 24, you expected it to be 5, and then Ebukam got hurt. So if you go into the season with those 5 guys all healthy, what does that rotation look like, and how does that maybe lead to more targeted snaps for certain guys, different things you can do on the defensive line? That could be a really good problem for the Colts to have. Now, they all got to perform to get there, but I think based on where you drafted these guys, what you've invested in them, I think you would expect probably that to be a really good 5-deep rotation there.
And looking to the way that you're going to have to start the season and some of the offenses that you're going to face, you want that group to be able to play at a very high level early on.
Well, and especially early in the season, you also want to have a lot of depth when guys are still kind of getting into real,
I got printouts, I got notes.
Good. That's what we should have here.
Yeah.
We should have a lengthy, meaty training camp episode. All right. Let's quickly talk about the rookies.
Yeah.
And what to expect. So we already kind of talked about JT Tuimoloau a little bit. We talked about Justin Wally a little bit. We talked about DJ Giddens a little bit. So let's just kind of rip through the other guys here. We're just going to talk about the drafted rookies.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. No, I missed a competition.
Kicker?
Because I was like, rookies? Hold on a second. There's an undrafted rookie who could compete. I did miss the kicker competition. We're not done with the competitions. Spencer Schrader and Maddox Trujillo.
Yeah.
It's a kicker competition.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
Spencer Schrader, they brought him back. He doesn't have a ton of experience in the NFL. The Colts do like what he did last year, coming from the Colts, where he hit a couple PATs in week 1, then to the Jets, then to the Chiefs. He managed that whole whirlwind really well. I had a chance to talk with Spencer last week on the podcast. If you haven't checked that out, go check it out. Fascinating individual. But Maddox Trujillo, that they brought him in to provide some competition there.
This is what we've seen the Colts do in recent seasons too,
right.
Is kind of bring in some. I mean, Spencer Schrader was here competing, so to speak, with Matt Gay.
Well, I think even that was maybe a little bit different because he wasn't maybe competing with Matt Gay.
I
But
shouldn't say that. But
Chase McLaughlin,
Chase McLaughlin.
Yeah.
They have. That's a better way to put it. They have tended to kind of carry two kickers through training camp, just to have a little bit of rotation.
This one's, I think,
position.
more head-to-head than it's been in years past.
I do still think that Schrader has the upper hand or upper leg, so to speak.
Nice.
Thanks. Just given what you've seen so far, there's a reason that you kept bringing this guy back. I mean, if you dive into the transaction chart on how many times he was released and brought back and, practice squad and then elevated and all of those different things, like there's a reason this guy keeps coming back around, and there you see something in him that you're like, not only do we want him, but we don't want to risk somebody else getting him.
I have 2 fun facts about Maddox Trujillo.
Oh, okay.
Number 1, named after Greg Maddux.
Amazing.
And number 2, he is the record holder for the longest field goal hit at Lincoln Financial Field in that stadium's history. He hit a 64-yarder there. He kicked for Temple, which plays their home games at the Link. He had a 64-yarder there last year.
And
He's got a big
no
leg.
professional kicker has hit a field
Not
goal
Jake
longer
Elliott,
than that?
not David Akers. You want to remember some more Eagles
What?
kickers? I mean, those are the 2 I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So there you go.
Wow.
I told you I had 2 fun facts about him.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And those are fun facts in my mind.
Those are fun facts.
Yeah. Get to mention Greg Maddux and David Akers. Let's do it. All right.
I should have come with more fun facts in my arsenal, I guess, for this podcast.
All right. Let's talk about the rookies.
Rookies.
Tyler Warren. I don't mean to say I don't care what he does as a pass catcher, because I do, and he's still got to earn his reps and his routes and his targets. But I just want to see the full pad days, what he does as a run blocker.
Sure.
Does he bring that physical mean streak that we saw on tape at Penn State? Does that translate to blocking down on a defensive end? Does that translate to getting out, and holding the point of attack against DeForest Buckner on a play when he needs to? That's going to be really interesting. That's what I'm excited about watching with him.
Okay, since you're referencing run blocking tight ends, let's go back to, of recent memory, the best that the Colts have had of late, which is Jack Doyle.
Correct.
You had a chance to sit down with Jack. What stood out from that film breakdown, which you can go and watch on Colts.com on YouTube? It is phenomenal. Jack's just, I was telling someone the other day that I feel like Jack is probably one of the more even keel individuals you ever come.
Yeah, and he was getting excited.
And he was downright giddy, right? What did you learn from Jack about what stood out to him with Tyler Warren in those situations?
It's the ability to go make a play for your team in the biggest moments. And it's one of my favorite things is the trick play that's in there, where it's this funky alignment, and Tyler Warren snaps the ball and he catches a touchdown on the play, but it's a trick play that doesn't work. And Drew Aller just kind of throws the ball up, all right, 44, go make a play. And he goes and he makes a play. He's also getting interfered with. He still makes a catch in the end zone. And that's what got Jack really excited, was because I asked him how translatable
the physicality.
Is this? Right. It's how translatable is this when it's a trick play? You can't run these all the time in the NFL. And Jack was like, no, this is a guy going and making a play for his team. That's always translatable. But really, it's the learning curve for tight ends in the NFL is difficult. I think, Brock Bowers probably scrambled some of the expectations last year with the records that he set. But those records were set by Mike Ditka in the 60s that he broke. So I think expecting Tyler Warren to have a Brock Bowers type season is unfair. But what sort of reps does he earn in an offense that I think is probably going to be 11 personnel heavy, with Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce as your primary 3 receivers? If you have 2 tight ends on the field, you're taking one of those guys off. which the Colts will do, but like I don't think the Colts are going to primarily be a 12 personnel team. So can Tyler Warren earn those snaps as the number 1 tight end? And to do that, you got to be able to run block because the Colts are going to have to run the ball out of 11 personnel. So can he be a functionally acceptable blocker? Like Ryan Kelly talked about it, of like just die a slow death as a tight end, where we don't expect it to look great, but like die an honorable death and just keep the whoever you're blocking away from the running back long enough for him to get through the crease. Can he get there? And that's what I really want to watch from him. Of course, I want to watch him catch the ball.
Yeah.
But like, what's going to inform me on maybe how quickly he can get on the field in a significant way is going to be the run block and stuff.
To me, Tyler Warren, one feeds off the other. Like his ability to do one directly translate to his effectiveness doing the other.
Yeah. And I mean, look, the Colts are going to use him in some funky ways, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah.
But he will also have to earn the ability to do that. So fascinated to see how it goes during training camp. But like everything we've learned about this guy is that I think it's probably going to go just fine.
Absolutely.
All right. We talked about JT Tuimoloau. We talked about Justin Wally. Let's talk about Jalen Travis really quickly here. A guy who I think is a really neat opportunity because, you know, over the last 5 seasons, Braden Smith has missed at least 1 game. Over the last 3 seasons, Bernard Ryman has missed at least 1 game. So the Colts, this happens every year. There's going to be attrition. The Colts are going to need a swing tackle. In years past, that has been Blake Freeland. Last year was Matt Gonzalez. Now he's kicking into guard. Is that going to be Jalen Travis? Is that going to be Blake Freeland? Is it going to be someone else on the roster? But there's an opportunity there for Jalen Travis to compete his way into a really important role as a rookie.
Oh, yeah, no question. I mean, there's a reason you kind of took him where you did. And
4th round,
you saw the upside that he brings. I mean, and you go back to, I believe it was the Senior Bowl tape, and where he was just dominating people in those type of situations. And scouts prioritize the Senior Bowl because it's just a lot of like really good on really good type of level of competition, especially in those practices. And just like the pure stature of Jalen Travis, like huge guy, the athleticism, incredible. Yeah. I want to see him get an opportunity, just because, not that I want to see injuries to anyone else, but I'm just really excited to see how quickly he is able to adapt to the speed of the NFL and this offense and playing within this rotation. The good thing is the guys who are surrounding you are going to help elevate your game really quickly. And I think that that's why we have seen rookies on this offensive line come in and be as productive as they have so far. It's because of the guys who have been surrounding them. Guys like Quentin Nelson and, you know, Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith help elevate those guys, where we've seen some situations where guys haven't really looked like rookies maybe as much as they should have in certain situations when they have been thrust into those roles.
All right, we already talked about DJ Giddens. We did already also talk about Riley Leonard. Tim Smith, defensive tackle from Alabama. I think he could push, you know, to be kind of the 4th guy on the rotation at D tackle. A guy who everything I've heard is that like Lou Anarumo really likes this guy.
He's incredible. I actually talked to a few of his position group coaches, on the staff at Alabama, just about the type of person, the type of guy, the type of player who he was for their program, the type of impact he made. I'm going to come back to him a little bit later too.
Okay. Ooh, spicy. I like it.
Tease.
And then the last Colts draft pick, Hunter Wohler.
Yeah.
Special teams guy, probably with upside as a dime linebacker, maybe sort of that hybrid guy. Who can play in some of the funky fronts and in defenses that Lou Anarumo is going to run. We'll kind of see where that one goes, but probably a special, like a good special teams contributor, I think.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of what you have seen. You've had, a guy kind of like this on the roster, these last few years, and you'll certainly expect kind of him to be in that depth piece, especially from that special team standpoint.
All right, let's call our shot here. Pick your training camp breakout star. Who do you got?
I went rounds and rounds on this.
Okay.
And I initially went with A.D. Mitchell.
Okay.
But we kind of already covered it. I'm going to go a totally different route. And I'm kind of cheating because I saw yours. I'm going to go opposite of what you're saying, because I'm going to say Kwity Paye.
Ooh.
I think this is a huge year for Kwity. And I'm looking at what he has done, the last few years, the amount of games that, he's played. The last 2 years, I mean, he had... where the sacks have been, his pressures. I think this is going to be, for me, a year in which you see something a little bit different.
It's a contract year.
It's that. Also, I had a little bit of time with Quiddy when the guys were here during minicamp, just chatting. And he's really intrigued for this defense and his fit and how it is going to play to, in particular, his skill set.
That was good. That was not low-hanging fruit.
No.
You reached up into branches on that one. However, I took the low-hanging fruit. I took Laiatu Latu.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's easy. Oh,
but I like
breakout star. The guy was a first-round draft pick last year. What a hot take that is.
Well, mine was a guy who's a first-round pick.
Yeah, but that was
2021. Yeah,
I mean,
3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
I think at this point, like, Quiddy Pay has established himself as a good football player.
Yeah, but
and if he takes that step to being a great football player,
because you have had, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but you have had the drop off when you did not have Samson Ebicom in that rotation, and you need someone to come up with that type of production for this team.
I mean, if the Colts got that out of Quiddy Pay, that'd be great. The thing I will say, I'm like, I will defend this, like. I keep saying this all the time. If Quiddy Pay stays the same player that he is, that is good. You need players like Quiddy Pay on your team who are good football players, who are good against the run. They'll get you a couple sacks. Like, you need Quiddy Pays on your team. You do. So, just if he goes beyond that, that's awesome. If he stays right here, that's great too. That is awesome. I think Latu, though, like, everything that I keep.
He's kind of different than anyone else you have.
He totally is.
In that position.
I think year 2, because he's more of a technique guy, and he wins with a really, kind of vast toolbox that he has. I think the year of experience, learning how to beat NFL tackles, now you can really go and apply all those reps you got. I think he's in for a big year, and I think you'll see that during training camp in a way that, last year he was impressive during camp.
Yep.
I think he'll be maybe even a little bit more so this year, especially when you get into those padded practices.
Agreed.
All right, let's do the mailbag, the Colts Show mailbag. Remember, submit your questions on Colts.com/mailbag, on social media, on the YouTube comments, wherever you can. This one comes from friend of the podcast, Nick Merlina.
Aw.
We love Nick on this podcast.
Nick.
Nick added a question about Bill Brooks. I am going to skip that. Nick being one of Bill's best friends. All right. Nick says, I'm very intrigued about the positional battles in training camp and most excited to see how our offensive skill positions shake out. Could you give me one position group to watch that people maybe aren't paying close enough attention to that will have major implications for the team's success this upcoming season? Larra, what do you got?
Defensive line.
Is that because it's just like it's a set it and forget it group? Like, hey, they're going to be good, or is it like you think they can go beyond what they've been in the last couple years?
It is mainly because the depth in the middle of that defensive line has been a concern.
Yes. At
points, when DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart have not been in the game, you have had a significant drop-off both in run and pass defense.
This is your Tim Smith tie-in here. I love it. Yeah.
Enter
Let's go.
Tim Smith. Enter Adetomo Adebari.
Neville Gallimore.
Enter Neville Gallimore. That's another guy. I feel like we have not talked enough about him.
I'll talk about Neville Gallimore all the time. That guy rules.
He's incredible, right? But just like I don't hear enough outside of this. I don't hear enough about him. I think that people have kind of underestimated what the Colts have quietly done to reinforce the center of your defensive line because of what you need to see. DeForest Buckner is one of the best at his position every single year. Grover Stewart, one of the more unsung heroes at his position.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What happens, though? You've got to have rotation in the defensive line. This Colts front office has invested an immense amount of capital through the draft, through free agency, through trades for DeForest Buckner in that group. To me, now it's time for the depth of that group to be proven. And that is where I think this is. Exactly like I said, Tim Smith. I want to see another step from Adetomo Adebari, and Neville Gallimore is, I think, going to be a big contributor behind those guys that you have up front.
All right, in the interest of being thorough, I'm going to talk about the one position group we haven't talked about yet. But in my defense, I had this in here before I even did the rest of the rundown.
Just one little quick fact. So you have your fun facts. Mine's not nearly as
what do you got?
Quirky. But, so 2024, the NFL Colts, 36 sacks. The year prior, it was 51.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of saw that.
The pressure rate was not where it needed to be.
Exactly. And I think a
lot of blitzing more will probably help that line too.
Well, and I mean, here's my other thing with, kind of to your Laiatu point, to the Kwity Paye point, is you've seen what you can do with a weapon like a Trey Hendrickson. I think that few players are a Trey Hendrickson, but when you just kind of look at semblances of a Lou defense and what he does with, big threats on the edge, it's intriguing. So in the interest of, you were saying.
Okay. So the way the rundown worked, I put the mailbag question in first, and then I filled everything else out after that. But when I put this in here, the one position group that people aren't paying close enough attention to that'll have major implications, I put safeties down. We have not mentioned Cam Bynum or Nick Cross on this podcast yet. It's a pretty simple answer. When you look at Lou Anarumo's best defenses in Cincinnati, it was when he had Jesse Bates and Von Bell back there. Two very good veterans. Not maybe like Pro Bowl level guys, but like really good veterans in the back end. I think the Colts have that in Cam Bynum and Nick Cross. We'll see how it plays out, but like Cam Bynum being the perfect fit for Lou Anarumo and what he wants to do, and then you've got Nick Cross, who, contract year guy, this is a big year for Nick Cross because he now has established himself as a good NFL starter. Can he do it again in Lou's defense? And if he does, there's quite a bit of money waiting at the end of the line for him. So I think those two guys in the back end, if this defense is going to reach its potential, to me it almost starts there. Because, and look, Lou he's a secondary coach by trade.
Yeah.
That's where the defense starts for him. He's kind of more top down. And I think for him it starts with those two safeties. Can he get the play that he needs out of Bynum and Cross? And if he does, I think the rest of this defense really starts to come together. I
love that. And I love that you have already seen Nick Cross develop, overcome early struggles.
Yeah, you want to talk about that, yeah.
How can he further develop now is I think that he has addressed some things, within his game and different things, to prepare him and put him in such a great position as we saw last year. Now, what does that look like? I love the fact that he has proven his development in the league. That can be one of the more difficult things to do and to show.
To come back from getting benched 2 games into your rookie year and to establish yourself as a good starter in the NFL like you did last year, you're right. That's really hard to do.
And so now I think that what's that next step in the development? He's proven how he can develop over those first, 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Now in this
in a new defense.
In a new defense, what does that further development look like? Because I think Lou's system is even better suited, I think, to the athleticism of a guy like Nick Cross than what we have maybe previously seen.
I think we hit everything. Got anything else left? I mean, what else could we possibly talk about in training camp?
I mean, we got
Luke Rhodes. He's back. Long snapper. Rigo Sanchez back. Punter. Kick returner. We'll see. Maybe there's a competition there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that do anything for you?
I
feel bad.
What's the rules with the new kickoff? We've changed it again.
I would hate to admit this to Brian Mason because the way he talks about special teams, I learn something new every time I talk to him. But special teams periods are my break to rest my back because my back hurts so bad just from standing, which is probably not a good thing. That special teams periods are where I take a knee or I'll go sit, chat with Rick Venturi. It's a period where I struggle to tell what's really going on in them. So,
I mean, to be honest, you also don't want to show too much during those periods either.
Right,
you are also not revealing your entire playbook in those periods.
Those periods are important, and you can learn something from looking at the personnel that's on the field. But that's when I need to.
You're going to be charting though. We're going to be charting those field goals.
I am going to be charting those field goals.
Yeah, the accuracy.
Thank God it's not. Thank God it's not 2019 again. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, and where I was in 2019, a kicker competition.
Enough said.
Yeah.
Enough said.
All right, enough said on that one. All right, we're going to end this podcast here. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of The Colts Show. She's Larra Overton. I'm JJ Stankevitz. I'll talk to you next week from training camp at Grand Park. Get your tickets now, Colts.com/camp. So long.